talking about structure and infrastructure. So with your podcast collective, it's really cool because it's kind of taking the idea of a podcast network, but definitely it sounds more supportive. It sounds more of like you are working alongside these podcasts. You know, you are like 2 of them, or you're in them, right? Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the podcasts that are in your collective. What is about? What does it do? Tell me what it do.
So my company is called Multitude, and we're a podcast collective and also a consultancy. So that means that we make money by consulting with people, clubs, universities, companies, radio stations who need support in making and marketing their podcasts. So you can Google like how to market a podcast, and there's like 5 things, one of which I wrote, but there isn't a lot of support out there for, you know, how do I like run a good podcast Twitter? How do I make good podcast art? What do you need? And unless you've been like obsessively listening to podcasts and reading every book about radio and podcasting, like I have and my colleagues have for so many years, it can be really hard to do that. So we publish a lot of free resources for people, not just podcasters, but creators of all kinds. Like we have a great accounting like spreadsheet that you can download for free if you want to keep track of like your side hustle income, stuff that I wish had existed when I was getting into all of this. Like I really want to like pay it forward to make it easier for people coming up behind me to get into this world. So we make money doing that by consulting with, you know, various people outside of our collective, and by selling ads. So I worked for a year at like an ad sales startup, where I learned both there and then before as a YouTuber, watching my friends get these, you know, sponsorship deals and like influencer money. It's fascinating. There are no rules to some extent, and there are a lot of advantages to like banding together with the 5 shows that Multitude contains, so that, you know, any one of the shows individually might have 5,000 downloads. Another one has 6,000 downloads per episode on average. Some of them are bigger, but when we can go to a sponsor and say like, hey, across all of our shows, we have 2 million downloads a month. So, you know, come on in and like, let's talk about how we can make a deal. The advertiser might not pay attention to any one of us on our own, but they will show up when we can say like, hey, let me use your time efficiently. Let me help you, you know, and like sell an ad across all of us. So a small commission off of those sales also helps to pay the bills. But mainly the support we provide for each other is, you know, we're 5 like independently owned podcasts that care about each other and about our audiences. So we cross promote each other. We pitch conferences and live shows, you know, different live events. And again, it's very much like there's power in being together. And so that's what something like a traditional network will offer a show and say like, we'll spend lots of money on advertising. We'll like run ads for you across our other shows. We will use our advertiser relationships to like make you a lot of money. And if your show is not that big, they might not kind of give you that time. Yeah.
Everything. It's funny. All the questions that I had, you just said, so thank you.
Yeah.
But everything with the podcast network that is appealing to people is, I think, everything that you said, but then what you said, they don't deliver a lot of the time. So what about that world are you trying to change? The podcast network world.
No, it's a good question. I mean, you shouldn't have to be popular to have access to that kind of stuff. Like you shouldn't have to make a super popular show or like work an unpaid internship at an NPR station for 4 years in order to like get a job that pays you $30,000 in New York City. Yeah. Like it takes a certain amount of privilege to rise up through the system in a lot of cases in that way. And there are tons of people without like on paper qualifications, much like early YouTube right now in podcasting, like making incredible stuff. Like there's no degree in how to, you know, be a great podcaster.
It's interesting how podcasting has been a thing for good 10 years, but it's still 15.
Yeah.
But it still lacks a lot of the freshness that I think people have been bringing in for years and years. But it's almost kind of like there's still a pushback of traditionally of like how it's done or you know, in NPR, how many downloads are they getting?
Well, I think it's more like radio in the US, obviously like over 100 years old.
Right.
And there are these systems in place where like literally radio stations are like broadcast into your car and into your home. Right. They're on airwaves for free. And so a lot of people who like, they don't come to podcasting as a new art form they never heard of before. They first like find their favorite radio show on a podcast. And so I think it's less that there is like not appetite for new stuff or opportunity for indie people or newcomers, but that there's just it's hard to compete with someone who has
Right.
like a 100-year plus legacy of
Right.
like making this stuff.
That's
And
a
so many of
good
them,
point.
they're
That's a
making
good point.
great stuff that aren't,
Yeah.
that's inspiring to others. Like tons of them
Right.
try to collab with indie
Pre-produced
shows.
and-
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's all great. And, you know, being able to take like a workshop that is funded by PRX, the Public Radio Exchange, you know, is great for indie producers. But at the same time, you know, it's kind of on us as indie producers to educate people as to why they should care about shows by producers they've never heard of.